Hello, everybody. My name is David Wiedemann, and this is 5 Minutes of Thought, episode number 25, The Three Identities, Being Clear About Who You Are. What's the big idea today? This is it. People by default settle into three ways of thinking about why they get together to work. We call them the three identities. They are all in tension with each other. So the goal is to set the ratio of identities that you want consciously. And in that way, you will avoid what I call the struggle in the depths. Let's talk about it. We'll talk about the three identities. We'll talk about the tensions between them. We'll ask so what, and we will reflect, and hopefully wondrous things will ensue. What are these three identities? These are three basic ways to think about why we get together. Why we're there, what the purpose of being together is. The first way is what I call people. That's the idea that you're there to be together, to build trust, to build relationships, to take care of each other. The second is what I call learning, and that's the idea that you're there to learn, to get better, to grow your knowledge, to grow your capabilities. And the third way is what I call performance, and that's the idea that you're there to do stuff efficiently, effectively, consistently, and well. If you were to say what languages, what words do these three identities kind of use generally, the learning of vocabulary comes out something like this: learning, meaning, understanding, decision making, sense making. Those are the kinds of things that the people oriented towards the learning identity are talking about. People orienting towards the people identity are thinking about community, relationships, trust, appreciation. And people in the performance identity are talking about outcomes, products, effectiveness, consistency, so on and so forth. Each of these, you can boil them down into a kind of a core principle. For the performance people, the core principle, I think, is effectiveness. For the people, the core principle is equivalence of people. And finally, I think for the learning-oriented folks, it's something like understanding. And just to show you that these three ideas kind of pop up all over the place in the organizational development literature, I'll just show you two writers that I picked almost randomly. On the top is David Cantor, who came up with the awesome way of thinking about how we work together called structural dynamics. And on the bottom is Ted Rao, who writes about sociocracy, which is an alternative decision-making governance system. And for them, each sees something like my three identities happening. David Cantor's communication domains break down into meaning, power, and affect. And Ted Rao's decisions that any organization needs to make to exist break down into decision style, which is kind of learning, aim, and members. And I think these generally correspond to the three identities that we're talking about here today. Let's talk about the tensions between these three identities. First of all three are necessary. You need to have them in some way. What do I mean? Well, just as an example, if you don't have the people identity, if you don't have trust, acceptance, connectedness, then you're not going to perform or learn very well. And if you're not performing at all, you're not really going to be around to have people building trust or connectedness or learning. And if you're not learning, you're not going to be able to respond to changes in the environment, so your performance is going to drop and you won't be around to have people. So they are all needed, but they're also in tension. Let me show you what I mean by giving you three examples. I'm going to pick three hypothetical organizations and I'm graphing them on what I'm calling the organizational footprint graph. First, let's start with the band. This band, let's say this band is a hyper performing band. That's all they do is exist to go up on the stage and play the highest quality songs you can imagine. In this kind of band, the identity is going to be on performance. There's not going to be as much space for learning or for people. That is to say, if you're a beginning musician, this is not the place to go to learn the basics of music. You're not going to have time for that. And if you're not a musician at all, there's not going to be a lot of space for you to hang around with these guys because they have one focus, performance. To contrast that, let's talk about church. Hypothetical church, religious organization. It's about the people. You're accepted there just by being a human being there and wanting to go. It's about connectedness. It's about trust building. It's about being together. It's about community. There's a little bit of performance. They do some things. They raise money. They have services. They learn. On Saturday, they have a reading group or something like that. But the main thing is equivalence. And the third example group is a graduate seminar, learning something. Small group focus is all about learning high intensity, intellectually challenging material, a little bit of performance. They write a paper at the end. A little bit of people orientation there because they are together and they build in kind of a team. But the main thing is learning. Okay, so you can see across these three organizational examples that there's a kind of a zero sum going on. Emphasis of one of these is going to de-emphasize the others. So there's an inherent tension there. And that's okay. The point is just to know about it and be open about it. And if you're not open about it, you're going to have tensions that I call the struggle in the deep. How are you open about it? Well, it's not that hard. I think you can do something like this. Create a kind of a lightweight conversation, or we're calling it a survey on this slide, and just get your folks together that are interested in talking about these kind of things and just say, who are we? Of these three identities, where would we put the sliders? Who do we want to be? And I think it's important to ask about this on an individual level and on a group level, because there's going to be individual differences and then there's going to be a group identity, and you need to be open about the tensions between those. And finally, if you do settle on a kind of an identity that you want to work towards as a group, the main question that comes up then is, are we really acting in accordance with that? Put a little lightning bolts there because that's a big zinger of a question. Are we doing the things that we need to do to emphasize that identity? Are we really de-emphasizing the others? Are we really willing to do that? Okay, let's go to the so what. So what about these sliders on the organizational footprint grid? Well, here's the so what. You are going to have an organizational identity made up of some combination of these three identities. If you're not open about it, it's going to create tension between people because they're going to have different ideas about why you're all there in the first place, and they're going to kind of step on each other's toes. So the point is to try to get together and set the sliders of your three identities collectively. Okay, let's pause and reflect. Trigger any thoughts, ideas, feelings, track those down, follow them up. You may be on your own learning arc. And of course, the cubicle challenge. I invite you to stand up from behind your cubicle and see if you can't explain what you've just heard today to the person in the next cubicle. I think we did everything we set out to do today. We talked about the three identities, the three tensions, we asked so what, and we reflected, and wondrous things ensued. This has been 5 Minutes of Thought, episode number 25, the three identities, being clear about who you are. I am David Wiedemann. For more 5 Minutes of Thought or to give us feedback, come see us at 5mot.org. And I leave you today with another view of the organizational footprint survey. Screen capture this, print it out, get your friends together and see what you can come up with. And have a great day.